Right now, as you watch this, the most powerful currency in human history is dying. Not slowly. Not gracefully. But following the exact same pattern that has destroyed every single dominant currency for the past 800 years. The Roman denarius. The Spanish real. The Dutch guilder. The British pound. They all followed the same 8 stages of collapse. They all showed the same warning signs. And they all fell when their leaders believed they were too powerful to fail. In 2025, the United States dollar has entered stage 6. There are only 2 stages left before total collapse. And what happens next will determine whether you preserve everything you have worked for, or whether you watch it evaporate like morning mist under a burning sun. The clock is ticking. The pattern is undeniable. And the evidence I am about to show you will change everything you think you know about money, power, and survival. Let me take you back to the year 1200. The world looked nothing like it does today, yet the forces that governed wealth and power were exactly the same. Empires rose on the strength of their currencies. They expanded when their money was trusted. And they crumbled into dust when that trust was betrayed. What I have discovered, after years of studying the rise and fall of the greatest civilizations in human history, is that every single currency collapse follows an identical pattern. 8 stages. 8 predictable, measurable, documentable stages that repeat with terrifying precision across centuries, across continents, across cultures that had no contact with one another. This is not coincidence. This is not interpretation. This is mathematical certainty playing out across the canvas of human history. And once you understand this pattern, you will never look at money, government, or your own financial future the same way again. Stage 1 is what I call the foundation. This is the birth of a monetary system, typically emerging from chaos or the ashes of a previous collapse. The new currency is born from necessity, forged in crisis, and backed by something tangible. Something real. Something that cannot be manufactured out of thin air by politicians or bankers. For the Romans, it was silver and gold extracted from mines across their expanding empire. For the Spanish, it was the vast treasures of the New World, galleons groaning under the weight of Aztec and Incan silver. For the Americans, it was gold reserves that made Fort Knox legendary, bars stacked in vaults so deep and so secure that they became symbols of absolute financial power. In stage 1, the currency is honest. It represents actual value. 1 coin equals 1 unit of real wealth. There is no manipulation, no deception, no sleight of hand. The people trust the money because the money deserves to be trusted. This stage can last decades, sometimes even a century. It is the golden age of any monetary system. The trust is real because the backing is real. Merchants accept the coins without question. Farmers sell their harvests confident that the payment they receive today will buy as much tomorrow as it does now. Children inherit wealth from their parents knowing that value will endure across generations. This is what honest money looks like. This is what stable civilizations are built upon. And this is what every empire eventually destroys. Stage 2 is expansion. The currency has proven itself. Traders from distant lands have tested it, weighed it, bitten it to check its purity, and found it worthy. Trade flourishes as trust grows. Merchants from different cultures, speaking different languages, worshipping different gods, find common ground in the shared acceptance of sound money. The empire grows not just through military conquest, but through economic dominance. The currency becomes a weapon more powerful than any army. Why fight when you can simply buy? Why conquer with swords when you can control with coins? During this stage, the issuing nation experiences unprecedented prosperity. Wealth flows in from every corner of the known world. Goods that were once luxuries become commonplace. The people live better than their ancestors could have ever imagined. They build monuments to their own greatness, they patronize arts and sciences, they believe their civilization will last forever. This is when the seeds of destruction are planted, though no one can see them yet. The prosperity breeds complacency. The merchants grow fat. The soldiers grow soft. The politicians begin to believe that the wealth will never stop flowing, that the good times are permanent, that the empire has somehow transcended the rules that govern lesser nations. They are wrong. They are always wrong. But they do not know it yet. Stage 3 is hubris. Success has lasted so long that it becomes invisible, like the air we breathe. The empire has been dominant for generations. Grandparents remember prosperity, parents expect it, and children believe it is their birthright. The leaders begin to believe they are exempt from the rules that govern ordinary nations. They have won too many times. They have been too successful for too long. They start to spend more than they earn. They launch wars they cannot afford against enemies that pose no real threat. They build palaces and monuments not because they serve any purpose, but because they can. They want to leave legacies. They want their names carved in stone. They want to be remembered as the greatest rulers of the greatest empire in history. The treasury begins to strain under the weight of imperial ambition. Advisors raise concerns but are dismissed as pessimists. Accountants present troubling numbers but are told to find more optimistic calculations. The military demands more funding. The aristocracy demands more luxuries. The population, having grown accustomed to subsidized bread and spectacular entertainment, demands that the good times continue. No one wants to hear that the party might be ending. No one wants to be the voice of restraint. The currency is still strong, still trusted, still accepted everywhere. But the foundation is beginning to crack. The first whispers of doubt appear in the financial records, buried beneath layers of optimism and denial. Stage 4 is dilution. This is where the true betrayal begins. The empire needs more money than it has. The wars are expensive. The monuments are expensive. The lifestyle to which the elite have become accustomed is very expensive. The population has come to expect certain services and entertainments, and cutting them would cause unrest. So the rulers make a fateful decision. Rather than admit they cannot afford their ambitions, rather than cut spending or raise taxes, they choose to cheat. They begin to debase the currency. The Romans did it by clipping their coins and reducing the silver content. Under Emperor Nero, the silver content of the denarius was reduced by 10%. His successors reduced it further. By the time the empire reached its terminal crisis, what had once been pure silver was little more than copper with a thin silver wash. The Spanish did it by flooding their economy with so much New World treasure that the precious metals became practically worthless. A silver coin in Madrid bought less each year as millions of pesos flowed across the Atlantic. Modern empires do it more elegantly. They simply print more paper, creating money from nothing but ink and promises. They call it monetary policy. They call it quantitative easing. They call it stimulus. But it is the same thing the Romans did, the same thing the Spanish did, the same thing every empire has done. They are stealing from the future to pay for the present. At first, no one notices. The coins still look the same. The paper still feels the same. The numbers on the bank statements remain unchanged. But the value is slowly, invisibly draining away. A coin that once bought a loaf of bread now buys half a loaf. Then a quarter. Then crumbs. The process is gradual enough that each individual change seems insignificant. A few percent here. A few percent there. Nothing to worry about. Nothing that cannot be explained away. But the cumulative effect is devastating. Wealth that took generations to accumulate is silently confiscated. Savings that were meant to provide security in old age become insufficient. The middle class, always the backbone of any stable society, is slowly ground into poverty. Stage 5 is awakening. The people begin to realize something is wrong. The signs are everywhere for those willing to see them. Prices are rising, but wages are not keeping pace. The butcher charges more for meat. The baker charges more for bread. The landlord demands higher rent. A lifetime of savings buys less and less with each passing year. Young people realize they cannot afford the lives their parents lived. The dream of owning a home, of raising a family, of retiring in comfort, seems to recede further into the distance with each passing month. The merchants who once eagerly accepted the currency now hesitate. They demand more coins for the same goods. They start to prefer older coins, the ones minted before the debasement began, whose weight and purity can still be trusted. Or they seek out foreign currencies that have not yet been corrupted. Trust, that invisible foundation upon which all money rests, begins to erode. It happens slowly at first, then with gathering speed. Whispers become conversations. Conversations become public debates. People who once trusted the official pronouncements begin to question. Smart money, the wealthy elite who always seem to know what is coming, begin quietly converting their holdings into tangible assets. Gold that cannot be printed. Land that cannot be inflated away. Commodities that will hold value regardless of what happens to the paper promises of the state. And now we arrive at stage 6. This is where the United States dollar stands in 2025. Stage 6 is acceleration. The problems that were once hidden are now visible to anyone willing to look. The pretense of stability is maintained, but the cracks are spreading. The national debt has reached levels that would have been inconceivable just a generation ago. $36 trillion. Let me put that number in perspective. If you spent $1 million every single day, it would take you over 100,000 years to spend $36 trillion. If you stacked 36 trillion $1 bills on top of each other, the pile would reach the moon and back multiple times. This is not money that can ever be repaid through normal economic means. This is a number so large that it can only be resolved through inflation, through default, or through some combination of the two. The government must borrow money just to pay the interest on the money it has already borrowed. In 2024, interest payments on the federal debt exceeded $900 billion. That is more than the entire defense budget. That is more than Medicare spending. That is money flowing out of the productive economy and into the pockets of creditors, domestic and foreign, who hold American government bonds. And the problem is getting worse. As interest rates remain elevated, as the debt continues to grow, the interest burden compounds. This is not fiscal policy. This is a spiral. This is a mathematical certainty leading toward an inescapable conclusion. The Federal Reserve creates new dollars at unprecedented rates, and each new dollar dilutes the value of every dollar that came before it. Since the year 2000, the dollar has lost over 40% of its purchasing power. $100 in 2000 buys what $56 buys today. Your savings, your salary, your pension, all of it has been quietly devalued. And the pace is accelerating. The inflation that Americans experienced in 2021, 2022, and 2023 was not an aberration. It was a preview. It was stage 6 announcing its arrival. Look at what is happening around the world right now. Nations that have held dollars for decades are quietly reducing their reserves. China, which once held over $1 trillion in American debt, has been steadily selling. They are not selling because they need the money. They are selling because they see what is coming. Russia has almost completely abandoned the dollar, driven partly by sanctions but fundamentally by a recognition that the dollar's dominance cannot last. Saudi Arabia, the kingdom whose oil once guaranteed dollar dominance through the petrodollar system, now accepts payment in other currencies. They are selling oil to China for yuan. They are diversifying away from the currency that made them rich because they can read the signs of the times. The BRICS nations are actively building alternatives to the dollar-dominated financial system. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and their growing list of partner nations are developing payment systems, settlement mechanisms, and eventually perhaps a common currency that would allow them to trade without touching the dollar. These are not the actions of minor players. These nations represent over 40% of the world's population and a growing share of global economic output. They are not taking these actions because they hate America. They are taking them because they see what is coming and are positioning themselves accordingly. The dollar is still dominant, still the world's reserve currency, still the foundation of global trade. But dominance and inevitability are not the same thing. The British pound was once the world's reserve currency too. It was backed by the world's largest empire, the world's most powerful navy, the world's most sophisticated financial system. It took less than 50 years for it to fall from that pedestal, for the pound to go from undisputed champion to just another currency among many. Stage 7 is crisis. This is what comes next, and the historical record tells us exactly what it looks like. The crisis stage is marked by a catastrophic loss of confidence. It often begins with a triggering event, a war that costs more than expected, a financial panic that reveals hidden weaknesses, a natural disaster that exposes the fragility of the system. The event itself is almost irrelevant. What matters is that it destroys the illusion of stability that has been carefully maintained throughout stage 6. Once the illusion breaks, once people realize that the emperor has no clothes, the collapse accelerates with terrifying speed. The currency does not decline gradually during stage 7. It collapses. Prices do not rise steadily. They explode. What cost $10 in the morning might cost $50 by afternoon. What cost $100 becomes worthless paper that children use as toys. The population panics. Bank runs empty the vaults as people desperately try to convert paper promises into something real. Store shelves go bare as merchants refuse to accept money that might be worthless tomorrow. Social order begins to fray as people realize that the system they trusted, the system they built their lives around, has betrayed them. Savings accumulated over decades are wiped out in weeks. Pension funds that promised security deliver poverty. The middle class, already weakened by decades of silent devaluation, is finally destroyed. Stage 8 is reset. When stage 7 has run its course, when the old currency has been completely destroyed, when the chaos has burned itself out, a new system emerges from the ashes. Sometimes the same nation rises again with a reformed monetary system. Germany, after the devastating hyperinflation of the Weimar Republic, eventually rebuilt with the Deutsche Mark, which became one of the most trusted currencies in the world. Sometimes new powers take over. The American dollar replaced the British pound after World War II, just as the pound had replaced the Dutch guilder centuries before. But always, the reset involves a return to something tangible. A new currency backed by real assets. A fresh start built on the lessons of what came before. Until, of course, those lessons are forgotten, and the cycle begins again. Humanity's memory is short. Each generation believes it has learned from the mistakes of its predecessors. Each generation is wrong. Now let me show you how this pattern has played out across 7 centuries of human history. In the late medieval period, the Byzantine Empire was the most sophisticated economy in the world. For 700 years, the Byzantine solidus, known to traders as the bezant, was the most trusted currency in existence. Merchants from England to China, from Scandinavia to Africa, accepted it without question. It was the dollar of its era, the unquestioned standard by which all other money was measured. The bezant maintained its purity for an almost miraculous length of time. 11 centuries of stability, a record that has never been matched before or since. But then the pattern began. In the 11th century, facing expensive wars against the Seljuk Turks who were pressing on the empire's eastern borders, the Byzantine emperors began to debase their currency. The gold content of the solidus dropped from 24 carats to 20. Then to 18. Then to 14. Then to 12. Each reduction seemed minor. Each was justified by the immediate crisis at hand. The Turks were threatening the heartland. The army needed to be paid. The frontier needed to be defended. What choice did the emperor have? But the cumulative effect was devastating. Merchants who had trusted the bezant for generations began to demand more coins for the same goods. They began to prefer older coins, coins minted before the debasement. They began to seek out other currencies, the dinars of the Islamic caliphates, the ducats of Venice. By the time the Fourth Crusade arrived at Constantinople's walls in 1204, the bezant had lost over half its original gold content. The empire that had seemed eternal, that had survived for over 1,000 years, was conquered by a ragtag army of Venetian merchants and French knights. They did not defeat a strong empire. They defeated a hollowed-out shell, an empire that had consumed itself from within. The currency collapse did not directly cause the military defeat, but it had made the empire too weak to defend itself. It had destroyed the trust that held the system together. It had impoverished the population that might have resisted. Stage 7 had arrived, and Stage 8 would follow with the establishment of Latin kingdoms on Byzantine soil. The Spanish Empire provides an even more dramatic illustration of the pattern. In the 16th century, Spain controlled the largest empire the world had ever seen. Spanish conquistadors had conquered the Aztecs and the Incas, claiming territories that stretched from California to Chile. Gold and silver flowed from the Americas in quantities that staggered the imagination. Every year, fleets of galleons crossed the Atlantic, their holds groaning under the weight of precious metals. The Spanish real became the world's dominant currency, accepted from Manila to Amsterdam to Moscow. It seemed like Spain had discovered the secret to eternal wealth. God himself, the Spanish believed, had blessed them with riches beyond measure. But what happened next perfectly illustrates Stage 4 of the collapse pattern. The massive influx of precious metals did not make Spain rich. It made Spain's money worthless. When you increase the supply of something without increasing demand, its value necessarily falls. This is basic economics. This is arithmetic. The Spanish discovered it the hard way. Prices in Spain rose by 400% over the 16th century. Wages did not keep pace. Workers who had once been comfortable found themselves sliding into poverty even as gold and silver poured through their ports. Spanish industry collapsed because Spanish goods became too expensive to compete with foreign alternatives. Why manufacture anything when you can simply buy it with American silver? Why develop skills and build factories when treasure ships arrive every year? By the early 17th century, Spain was bankrupt. The empire that controlled half the world's gold could not pay its own soldiers. Spanish infantry, once the most feared fighters in Europe, mutinied for lack of pay. The Spanish crown declared sovereign default multiple times, destroying confidence in the financial system. The real's dominance ended not with a sudden crash but with a slow, grinding devaluation that impoverished millions while enriching foreign merchants who were happy to take Spanish silver in exchange for manufactured goods. Meanwhile, the Dutch, who had broken free of Spanish rule through decades of bitter warfare, built a new monetary system based on sound principles. The Amsterdam Wisselbank, established in 1609, became the most trusted financial institution in Europe precisely because it did not debase its currency. The guilder replaced the real as the preferred currency of international trade. Dutch merchants, Dutch banks, Dutch ships dominated the 17th century. But even the Dutch could not escape the pattern forever. By the late 18th century, the costs of maintaining their global trading empire had become unsustainable. The Dutch East India Company, once the most valuable corporation in human history, was drowning in debt. The guilder began its long decline. Stage 4 had arrived for the Netherlands, and the subsequent stages would follow with historical inevitability. The British pound sterling story is particularly relevant for understanding the dollar's current trajectory. In 1914, the pound was the world's undisputed reserve currency. Britain's economy was the largest on earth. British banks financed trade on every continent. The Royal Navy ruled the seas, protecting British commerce and British investments. The sun never set on British financial dominance. Then came World War I. The cost of the war forced Britain to suspend the gold standard. The government needed to print money to pay for shells, ships, soldiers, and the 1,000 other expenses of modern industrial warfare. By 1918, the British money supply had more than doubled. Inflation surged. The pound's purchasing power collapsed. The war was won, but the damage to the currency was irreversible. Britain tried to return to the gold standard after the war, attempting to restore the pound to its pre-war value. But the pretense could not be maintained. The British economy was too weak, the debts too large, the world too changed. World War II completed the pound's destruction. By 1945, Britain was bankrupt in everything but name. The nation that had once ruled a quarter of the planet could not feed its own population without American aid. The dollar took the crown because it had to. The United States held most of the world's gold. Its economy was the only major industrial base to emerge from the war not just intact but stronger than before. The Bretton Woods system, established in 1944, made the dollar the foundation of the global monetary order. Other currencies were pegged to the dollar, and the dollar was pegged to gold. It seemed like a permanent arrangement. It seemed like the foundation of eternal American dominance. It lasted less than 30 years. In 1971, facing the costs of the Vietnam War and the Great Society programs, President Nixon closed the gold window. The dollar was no longer backed by gold. It was backed by nothing but the full faith and credit of the United States government. Since 1971, the dollar has been a pure fiat currency, backed only by the promise that the government will maintain its value. And how well has that promise been kept? In 1971, you could buy a new car for $3,000. Today, that same car costs over $40,000. In 1971, a house cost about $25,000. Today, the median home price exceeds $400,000. In 1971, gold cost $35 an ounce. Today, it costs over $2,000. The dollar has lost over 90% of its purchasing power since it was freed from its golden anchor. This is stage 4. This is stage 5. This is stage 6 arriving at our doorstep. The question is not whether the dollar will complete its journey through stage 6 and into stage 7. The historical record is unambiguous. No currency that has entered stage 6 has ever recovered. Not one. In 800 years of monetary history, covering dozens of currencies and spanning every continent, the pattern has never been broken. The question is when. And the question is what you will do before it happens. History tells us that the transition from stage 6 to stage 7 is not gradual. It is sudden. It is triggered by events that seem unpredictable but are actually the inevitable consequence of decades of accumulated imbalances. A war that costs more than expected. A financial crisis that reveals hidden weaknesses. A pandemic that overwhelms fiscal resources. A loss of confidence that feeds on itself until the entire system breaks down. We have seen glimpses of stage 7 in recent years. The financial crisis of 2008, when the entire global banking system nearly collapsed. The inflation surge of 2021 to 2023, when prices rose faster than they had in 40 years. These were warnings. These were previews. The main event is still to come. The people who suffer most during these transitions are those who did not see it coming. Those who trusted the system until the very end. Those who believed the official reassurances that everything was fine, that the experts had it under control, that this time was different. They are not stupid. They are not uninformed. They are simply trusting. And that trust will be their undoing. The people who survive and even prosper are those who recognize the pattern. Those who studied history. Those who took action before the crisis rather than after. They converted their paper wealth into tangible assets while there was still time. They diversified internationally, ensuring that their fate was not tied to any single currency or any single government. They reduced their dependence on systems that could fail. They did not panic when the crisis arrived, because they were prepared. They did not lose everything, because they had already taken steps to protect themselves. I am not telling you that the dollar will collapse tomorrow. Stage 6 can last for years, even decades. The British pound was in decline for 30 years before its final fall from dominance. There may still be time. But the trajectory is clear. The pattern is unmistakable. And the historical record is unambiguous. Every empire that followed this path ended up in the same place. There is no reason to believe America will be the exception. What you do with this information is entirely up to you. You can dismiss it as doom and gloom, as the ramblings of pessimists who do not understand how special America is. Every empire in history has told itself the same story. The Romans believed they were exceptional. The Spanish believed their faith would protect them. The British believed their civilization was too advanced to fail. They were all wrong. Or you can study the pattern. You can examine the evidence. You can make rational decisions based on centuries of historical precedent. You can take steps to protect yourself and your family from what is coming. The 8 stages of currency collapse are not a theory. They are a documented historical pattern that has repeated again and again across 8 centuries of human civilization. The dollar is currently at stage 6. The clock is ticking. And what happens next will be determined not by hope, not by denial, not by wishful thinking, but by the inexorable forces that have governed money and power since the first coin was minted in ancient Lydia nearly 3,000 years ago. Now I want to hear from you. Having seen this pattern laid out, having examined the evidence from across centuries of history, what do you think? Do you believe America can reverse this trajectory, or do you think the historical pattern will hold once again? What are you doing to prepare for what might be coming? Share your perspective in the comments below. This is a conversation that matters, perhaps more than any other conversation we could have about the future. Your insights, your experiences, your questions help build a community of people who are paying attention, who are thinking critically, who refuse to be caught off guard. And if this analysis opened your eyes to something you had not considered before, if it made you think differently about the money in your pocket and the system that creates it, then I encourage you to become part of this journey. There is so much more to explore, so many more patterns hidden in history, so many more lessons from the past that can guide us through the challenges ahead. The knowledge is here. The question is whether you are ready to receive it.